I wrote this article with Colin Moynihan, a colleague at the New York Times, and he received from an activist in Washington State named Drew Hendricks a 27-slide PowerPoint, which was prepared by AT&T and government agents, apparently DEA or possibly other government agencies. And essentially, there are training slides to introduce folks who are going to be working on the Hemisphere Project, how it works and what it can do. And Drew Hendricks, the activist in Washington, got these slides as part of a series of public information requests. He's sort of a peace activist out there, and he had been helping some folks with a lawsuit and just fired off a bunch of public information requests to police agencies in Washington State and other places on the West Coast. This set of slides came back with one of those requests. Drew Hendricks believes it may have been sent actually by accident, included by accident. But in fact, it's unclassified. It's marked law enforcement sensitive, but it's unclassified. And it actually states that the Hemisphere Project is unclassified. What's kind of remarkable to us is that this has been going on for at least 6 years under the name Hemisphere Project. And it's unclassified, but no one's ever learned about it. I couldn't find a single reference to it in the Nexus News database or on the web. And so they've kept it very well hidden. And indeed, some of the slides say, if you get information from Hemisphere, never reveal the source of the information. So the government has kept this very, very well hidden along with AT&T. And
explain what exactly it is, what AT&T is keeping records of, and how the government uses this information.
AT&T operates what are called switches through which telephone calls travel all around the country. And what AT&T does in this program is it collects all the what are called the CDRs, the call data records, the so-called metadata from the calls that we've heard about in the NSA context. This is the phone numbers involved in a call, its time, its duration, and in this case, it's also the location. Some are cell phone calls, some are landline calls. Anything that travels through an AT&T switch, even if it's not made by an AT&T customer. For example, if you're using your T-Mobile cell phone, but your call travels through an AT&T switch somewhere in the country, it will be picked up by this project and dumped into this database. So AT&T collects the information on all these calls, basically who called who when all over the country. And as you mentioned, there's a slide that says 4 billion, with a B, call data records are added to the database every day. I'm told by some technical experts that it's possible one call can create more than one call data record. Apparently, if a cell phone, for example, in a moving car switches from one tower to another, that could be another record. So because those numbers sound pretty high, 12, maybe 12 or so calls per American per day. But anyway, all that call data goes into this giant database. And then when a drug agent at one of 3 centers around the country, in Los Angeles, Houston, and Atlanta, finds a number of interest, they can ask the AT&T person sitting next to them, check this out. The AT&T person accesses the database, the Hemisphere database, and they can come back with a record of, here's the other numbers called by this number, the number you're interested in, and when and where in many cases, and then they can follow up. I should say that in order to access the database, the government says that the agent asking AT&T to make the search has to produce at least what's called an administrative subpoena, which is essentially a form, a DEA form, not approved by a court or by a judge, but simply a DEA form saying, here's why we're interested in this number. So there's no judicial oversight. But it is, these administrative subpoenas are used routinely in a criminal investigation. So the government's side of the story is that this is no different from kind of routine criminal investigation that happens every day.
Scott Shane, very quickly, my final question is about the issue of privacy. What does this raise for Americans?
Well, I think what it shows is that apart from the program we've learned about with the NSA in recent months, there are many other programs that the government has, many of them related to law enforcement as well as to intelligence gathering. And also that the government works extremely closely with some telecommunications and internet companies, sometimes using court orders, but often using voluntary arrangements like this one, and often paying the companies to participate. So that the universe of data that's gathered and it has implications for American privacy goes way beyond any one agency or even beyond the government itself into the corporate sector.